Dawn in the hills near the township of Nimbin in northern New South Wales. A time of tranquility in a place of remarkable beauty. On most days, the dawn finds Marcus Jackson walking these hills. For 7 years now, he's been on a journey of exploration, trying to discover new ways in which men and women can more effectively relate to their environment and live more meaningful lives. His searching has led him to become a planter of trees. Last year, Marcus Jackson planted 35,000 trees for landholders around Nimbin. Unfortunately, he knew little about running a business and planted most of them at a loss. This year, he'll plant a great many more trees, hopefully at a profit. It's a business he's created out of his love of the land. He's been so successful at convincing local landholders to develop private forests that forestry experts, environment officials and sawmillers have sought his advice. Many people call Marcus Jackson a hippie dropout. He sees himself as a new settler, a pioneer of a new way of living that's an alternative to mainstream straight society. Either way, he's caught up in a social experiment at Nimbin that too few understand in terms more meaningful than drugs and dole bludgeon. In the 60s, Nimbin was slowly fading away. Poverty-stricken dairy farmers and banana growers had abandoned their properties and Nimbin was becoming a ghost town. But in 1973 it was taken over by thousands of young people for an aquarium festival. And as pensioner Tommy Smith puts it, the flower power people chased away all the ghosts. Many stayed after the festival and were joined by hundreds more in a social fallout from the cities. The new settlers began recycling Nimbin. They took over most of the empty shops and launched some new enterprises that mystified the locals. At first there was a lot of misunderstanding and tension between the townsfolk and the long-haired, barefooted newcomers. But now it seems they've worked out a way to coexist. Nimbin's economy is booming, property values soaring. Town life is important to the new settlers. It's an essential part of the total environment in which they're trying to create a new way of life. So, many of their children put on conformist uniforms and pack the expanding classes of the state school. But not all of them. The new settlers have their own school. They paid $15,000 for a rambling schoolhouse across the road from the state school. They have a school bus and a school farm too. Why did they break away from the state system? Teacher Dorothy Smith.
Well, mainly because there were so many children and parents unhappy in the state system. And a lot of children weren't going to school at all. We collected up quite a lot of children of 7, 8, 9 who'd never been to school. And that, I think, was because there's such a division between the school and the home in the system still. I think they're trying to work on it, but there still is a big division. So we decided to start this school with the parents running the school. And we've got a few qualified teachers, but mainly it's the parents are teaching their own children. And the children don't feel that division between school and home.
How do you discipline students when you have to?
Well, obviously we have children who have problems. And it's nearly always connected up with something that's happening at home, we find, because we're going through the whole thing. But our main disciplinary measure is to exclude them from school because they all love coming to school. So our main thing is to say, right, you can't come to school if you're going to behave in this aggressive way or whatever is happening. And that seems to work. Exclude them from school for a few days and they come back ready to go again.
Materialism, suburban isolation and the city rat race are a long way from Nimbin. On Saturday mornings the town pulsates for a while, but for most of the time the action is decentralised on scores of rural cooperatives, communes and privately owned properties in the countryside. Nimbin folk have become accustomed to hearing music in their streets at any time of the day, and it's generally agreed that life is richer for it. New settler-run restaurants provide an elaborate range of health foods and vegetarian dishes, and in few other places can one eat so well for so little. Many old-timers who once contemplated moving out have decided to stay. Where else could they enjoy the sight of the local art gallery owner arriving for work in a sarong and riding a homemade tricycle with 30 years? It's rare for a town the size of Nimbin to have an art gallery, but here tourists attracted by Nimbin's hippie reputation provide a ready market. The gallery sells art and handicrafts that the new settlers make with a twofold purpose: to provide them with money and as an avenue for relating afresh to the world around them. Nimbin now has a modern council-run caravan park to cater for the expanding tourist trade, but a great many of the visitors arrive with backpacks, not caravans. For them, a youth hostel has been built on a farm at the edge of town. It's been developed as the nucleus of a family holiday centre by Bob Sharp, himself a dropout from the city in search of a lifestyle close to the land. For the curious, Nimbin has many attractions, and not the least of these is down by the local creek, where the scenery is beautiful enough to enchant even the most jaded traveller. It's also the setting for a most amazing enterprise, the Bush Factory. It used to be the butter factory, but that closed long ago. Last year, a cooperative of new settlers bought the abandoned building for $20,000 and set about recycling it. In one part, they've set up a printery which, between commercial jobs, produces the weekly Nimbin News, circulation 700 and just paying its way. The factory also accommodates the Bush Design Cooperative. Its artists, journalists and advertising experts last year generated business worth about $100,000, which kept them all off the dole. They beat city-based competitors for a contract to produce the region's official tourist guidebook. But the most astonishing feature of the Bush Factory is its magnificent theatre. It's not finished yet, but several very successful locally written musicals have been staged. Not surprisingly, the themes generally reflect the alternative culture.
Just one of those quiet days down nowhere falls, where you don't have to rush and you've got time to pause and look at what you're doing and notice what you see. Think about where you're going and wonder at what it all means. Just one of those quiet nights down nowhere falls, when the stars keep on shining so bright it's like dawn. You can look at what you're doing and notice what you see. Think about where you're going and wonder at what you're, wonder at what you're, wonder at what it all means. Just one of those quiet nights down nowhere falls, when the stars keep on shining so bright it's like dawn.
The Bush Factory is an example of what the new settlers call job creation. New settler Terry McGee, now an alderman of the Lismore City Council, sees it as a logical development in the evolution of the alternative lifestyle movement. Terry McGee has been part of Nimbin's social experiment since it began.
I think it's been very successful in terms of providing when compared against what other young people who are basically unemployed have done in Australia over the last 4 or 5 years. People up here, and most of the people that have come up here have been unemployed. They've come up and built their own house and now started to create their own jobs. Now, that's really amazing, really. I mean, if all the 500,000 people who are unemployed did that, I think we'd be over the unemployment problem that we've got.
There is still, though, a lot of opposition to the new settlers.
There's some. I don't think it's a lot. I think it's a minority of people who used to be in positions of power, and now with people moving into the area, there's change in the power structure, and I think they are doing sort of automatic reflex reactions.
Away from the streets of Nimbin, it's easy to lose track of this rural revolution. The new settlers merge into the countryside almost without trace. But the Tuntable Falls commune is only 10 minutes' drive from town. It's known as a commune, is really a cooperative, but the 200 people living there call themselves a tribe. They own almost 1,000 hectares. Membership of the co-op costs $500, but the books are closed. The pace of life at Tuntable is slow. The clock most frequently referred to as the sun. Their idea of progress does not embrace compulsive consumption nor continued growth of the corporate state. There are diverse views as to what the alternative should be, but most are dedicated to a high-minded poverty that embraces cooperation and harmony with nature. The Tuntable tribe is scattered over several hamlets, each loosely united by philosophical or religious leanings. One hamlet is in a mountain forest. Access by foot is exhausting, and heavy supplies are hauled up on a battery-powered flying fox. This stone cottage was built by Julie Bagent, an artist. As is the custom in these parts, she built it with her own hands. Because new settlers generally have little money, there's much innovation, recycling, and use of on-the-spot natural materials. Julie's house costs the grand sum of $1,500. It stands on the edge of a cliff.
Well, Tuntable Creek's down the bottom of this 200-foot cliff, and I'd spend mornings collecting the stone out of the creek, throwing them up onto the bank, and then wheelbarrowing them across to the flying fox. And then they'd all come up on the flying fox, and from there they'd come across to here. So that was a lot of, loads to carry. There was probably about 70 tonnes of material. And then I'd spend the rest of the day just doing some cementing. I'd mix up the cement by hand. There's probably over 1,000 batches of cement. And with the stone, well, I bought a book in the beginning about stone masonry. That explained a lot. And as I went along, I learnt. There was always advice on hand. But although it was physically hard work, it was very easy. It was easy to understand and didn't have many problems at all.
Now it's finished, how do you feel?
Oh, great relief. I'm really starting to slow down and relax and enjoy living here in the forest.
Natalie Williams, a former university student, is also building her own house. She's using stones dug out of the land she's trying to convert into a vegetable garden. The house is circular, about 6 metres in diameter. It will be about 7 metres high and of 2 stories. She hopes to have it finished by the end of the year at a cost of little more than $1,200. The women of Nimbin's alternative society have shown that when it comes to survival lifestyles, they're as good as any man.